WBI, only CBS.
Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the SOAR Summit shifted its attention to Eastern Kentucky flood relief this afternoon, what several officials had to say about rebuilding and recovering. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared martial law in 4 areas of Ukraine, what President Joe Biden had to say about the U.S. support for the Ukrainian people.
Plus, even nicer weather is on the way as we head into this weekend. The latest breakdown on when we can see 70s back in the forecast coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley coming to you tonight live from outside the Appalachian Wireless Arena in Pikeville, where inside the Shaping Our Appalachian Region Summit wrapped up around 4 o'clock this afternoon, and believe it or not, they're already getting ready for the UK Blue-White game that happens here on Saturday. But the 2-day summit ended with a discussion on long-term flood relief, which I was honored to moderate. Of course, the flood in late July damaged or destroyed thousands of homes and businesses, and the governor says the cost of the damage will be in the billions. I was joined on stage with Congressman Hal Rogers, ARC co-chair Gail Manchin, State Representative Angie Hatton, and State Representative Derek Lewis. We covered many issues from floodplain revisions, housing, and what communities can do to make this situation better long term.
I just think we have to be smart in our planning and in our evaluation of how the damage occurred, why it occurred, and what were the most volatile areas that were affected.
And we also had a conversation about FEMA, and I heard some of the panel's stories that inspired them during the flood. We will have more on the discussion coming up tonight at 11 o'clock. Well, joining me now live here in Pikeville is the SOAR Executive Director, Colby Hall. And Colby, despite, this flood panel we had and the discussion about what's happened here in the last 2.5 months, I always come away from these SOAR summits feeling inspired and optimistic about the future, and I'm sure you do the same.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I think that's the primary objective for every SOAR summit is that reinvigoration that you feel when you get together with 1,500 other Eastern Kentuckians. And really work starts now as we walk out these doors and we head back in our communities. We have to keep working on it and moving this region forward.
Obviously, a lot of projects were announced, a lot of money handed out. Any takeaways from this summit maybe you weren't expecting?
We have a ton of opportunity in front of us, Steve. Again, the world changed with this COVID-19 pandemic, and as we continue to climb back in a lot of ways, we talked a lot about remote work opportunities, for example. Our region has more opportunities to really get ahead of where it was before the pandemic. And so I think there's a lot of good things on the horizon, but we have to go out and make it happen.
I know a big focus of this summit was the next 10 years and what we're going to accomplish in the next 10 years. Do you think you accomplished your goal of this summit?
Well, I think in 48 hours we did about as much as we could, but the work starts now, but it's 6 inches every day, Steve. We had a session where we looked at the last 50 years and kind of some progress and some gaps that are there. So a lot of these deep-seated, deep-rooted issues we're not going to fix overnight, but let's get 6 inches better each day, and 30 days at a time and 12 months at a time, and then as 2033 and beyond gets here, I think we'll become a better version of ourselves. And so that's the goal. So absolutely, I think we did as much as we could in 48 hours.
And you really had 2 full days of programming. I think for the first time it was 2 full days.
Yeah, that's right.
And you had several keynote speakers this year instead of just one. And did you hear anything that was particularly inspiring from any of the keynotes today?
Well, we really appreciated having Congressman Rogers both days. He was a trooper for us. Governor Andy Beshear was on the first day. Hearing from Robert Skena, the CEO of Ragent Corporation, which is a Pennsylvania-based company company that has operations in Moorhead and are really creating some high-tech satellites and doing some really cool things with Moorhead State. So everybody brought something different to the table, and we were just really fortunate to have their participation and support in this year's event.
I know you want to probably take a little break, but what's next for SOAR? What's the next big event?
Yeah, well, it's not going to be hard to fall asleep tonight, I can tell you that much. But in January, we're going to be back at the Mountain Arts Center for the first ever SOAR Eastern Kentucky Gala. So looking forward to that event. We've got another country music highway tribute show, which we started last year, that we're looking forward to in the summer. And then as we flash forward, go forward a year, we'll be back in Corbin for the 2023 SOAR Summit. So it never stops here, Steve, and we have a great team here at SOAR. I'm so blessed to have good people behind me, and we're going to take a break tomorrow, probably the weekend, maybe a few days next week, and then we're going to get back at it.
We certainly had a beautiful day today. Congratulations on another successful event, and look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Well, we appreciate you, Steve, and your whole entire team at WYMT. You're always there for us.
All right. Kobe Hall, Executive Director of SOAR. Thank you very much. And, you know, we're going to have much more from here in the SOAR Summit at Pikeville coming up tonight at 6. But first, we're going to send it back to Hazard now and meteorologist Evan Hatter for a first look at our forecast.
Well, Steve, thank you. And you saw there behind him, the sun continues to shine bright throughout downtown Pikeville this afternoon as it becomes evening throughout the mountains. We take a look throughout the region. We've got a few high clouds beginning to push into our western sections. There's a look from Buffalo Mountain and Perry County back into the upper 50s now. And yes, we're actually on the way to a pretty nice sunset should those clouds stay where they are. So keep those eyes to the western skies as we head into the next couple of hours. Already, sun has set in downtown Whitesburg, where the mountains are there in the particular background, but you still see plenty of sunshine there. Temperatures upper 50s and even a couple of low 60s out there. Manchester's at 60 and Jacksboro's at 61. But many of us remain in the middle and upper 50s. Winds out of the south and west really helping boost those temperatures. Not only that, but with as dry as it is, we're also dealing with the potential for fire danger. We've just seen that Johnson County has already declared a burn ban out there as we run into the next couple of days. That's something we need to watch. Do not burn outside if you don't have to next couple of days. A few clouds moving through, but nothing that will produce any rain, at least not until the other side of the weekend. Details coming up on what that means for your weekend forecast. But first, let's check up on the other news of the day with Dakota.
All right, Evan, thank you so much. Well, the battle for control of southern and eastern Ukraine is intensifying. Ukraine's army is moving to cut off Russian forces in the key city of Kherson, hoping to build on other successes on the battlefield. Russian President Vladimir Putin has now declared martial law in 4 provinces that were illegally annexed earlier this month. Holly Williams is in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital.
In Kherson, one of the regions occupied by Russia, the authorities installed by Moscow have started moving tens of thousands of people away from the front line, ahead of an expected Ukrainian counteroffensive. As Russian troops battle to hold on to land they've seized, the mood on Russian state TV seems close to despair. Don't expect any good news in the next 2 months, says this correspondent. The anchorwoman asks why Russia thought President Volodymyr Zelensky would run away and NATO wouldn't help. She doesn't say it, but those are really questions for Vladimir Putin, the man who started this war. President Biden said yesterday the Russian leader's in a, quote, incredibly difficult position.
It seems his only tool available to him is to brutalize individual citizens.
He's doing that with swarms of so-called suicide drones targeting Ukraine's cities and attacks on the power grid as a harsh winter looms. But Ukrainians, as always, have responded with stunning resilience. Kyiv's subway has served as a bomb shelter for civilians during Russian attacks. But this morning, we found it packed with busy commuters, apparently determined to live their lives as normal in the face of a vicious invasion.
But I think we'll go through it and we will win soon. We believe in it.
And also surrendering is not in our DNA.
Andrei Zagorodnyuk is Ukraine's former Minister of Defense.
These so-called suicide drones, they seem like a very conscious attempt to terrorize the civilian population. Is it going to work?
Very simple answer, no. Yes, they will damage some infrastructure, that's for sure. Are they going to terrorize civilians, which are then change their mind about the course of the war? Absolutely no.
power outages of up to 4 hours are expected across Ukraine today. The national energy company has urged people to ensure that they have warm socks, blankets and hugs from family and friends. Holly Williams, CBS News, Kyiv.
Well, President Joe Biden says the U.S. will continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. But House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has indicated Congress won't continue to, quote, write blank checks if the Republicans take over the House this fall. A statement published by the Kremlin today revealed Russian President Vladimir Putin has visited mobilized personnel at the training ground of the Western Military District in the Ryazan region. The statement said he inspected the combat coordination of the units and the readiness of the military personnel to perform tasks in the areas of the so-called Russian Special Military Operation. Putin reportedly inspected practical exercises as part of tactical, firearms, engineering, and medical training. The mobilization announced in September sought to recruit 300,000 personnel, but its execution has been widely criticized inside Russia. In earlier October, Russia's defense minister said more than 200,000 people had already joined the Russian armed forces as part of the partial mobilization. And after just 44 days in office, British Prime Minister Liz Truss has resigned. Her economic policies are blamed for financial market instability. The Conservative Party leader was the most popular prime minister ever tracked by British market research company YouGov. Her term was the shortest of any prime minister in British history. In her brief resignation speech today, she defended her policies while acknowledging her party's lack of support.
I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
Now, Truss will remain Prime Minister until her successor is chosen. That's expected to happen sometime next week. We'll still ahead here on Mountain News at 5:30. Looking for a year-end getaway? We have some money tips, savings for your upcoming travel plans.
Plus, like warm weather? Then do I have a deal for you this weekend? The latest on 70s returning coming right up.
WYMT News app offers alerts on breaking